Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the latest installation of our live stream series here at All Tech is Human. If you're new to us, thank you for joining. We are a nonprofit that unites people and organizations to tackle wicked tech and society issues and co-create a tech future that's aligned with the public interest. I'm the founder and director. We started in 2018, based here where I'm sitting right now in New York City, but we have a global audience and lens. For example, after today's live stream, feel free to join our Slack community of over 5,000 members across 69 countries right now. I also have my colleague, Sandra. Sandra, how's everything going?
It's going well. How are you, David?
I'm doing all right. Well, I hope you're doing better than I am because, hey, it's Sandra's birthday. Feel free to use the comments to wish Sandra a happy birthday if you've had the chance to interact with Sandra, who really focuses on some of the partnerships that we do. Again, being this meta connector, the people, organizations, and ideas of this responsible tech space. But Sandra, love to hear just a little bit from your end, some of the topics that you're kind of working on, and then we will shift over to the conversation at hand, which is around building your career in trust and safety. Since we tackle wicked tech and society issues, so many of those issues happen through the prism of social media and the people who really act as the social workers, so to speak, as some people like to say, of the internet for trust and safety to reduce harms, reduce hate speech, reduce misinformation, you name it. But Sandra, love to hear a little bit on your end.
Yeah, absolutely. Today should be a really great conversation with Alice and Pearle. So we have a lot going on at All Tech is Human. When do we not? Next week, we're excited to host Consumer Reports and the Kapoor Center at BetaWorks for their launch of Bad Input. It's a docuseries on algorithmic bias. If you haven't signed up, you should totally join us. It should be a really interesting event and showing of the series. Also on August 2nd, we've just announced our next Responsible Tech Mixer in San Francisco. Our last one was really successful, and we're excited to be partnered up with CRISP again on this event. It's going to be for about 250 people at Manny's, and that's August 2nd. So definitely check out the interest form on our website for that. And we have 2 fall summits, which is crazy, on top of our Responsible Tech Guide coming out. Our first summit is actually going to be in September 14th around UNGA. And that's in partnership with our good partners, the Canadian Consulate in New York City. And that's going to be focused on improving social media. So right now we're sourcing folks that might be interested in speaking, attending, contributing in some way. Definitely reach out to us. We want to make this event a success after March's summit and the momentum that came out of that. And finally, we have a second fall summit in partnership with the Australian Embassy in DC. And that's going to be focused on youth tech and well-being. And we're also collecting interest for both summits. So go to our website, check out these interest forms, let us know how you want to get involved. We really want to partner with you all and put out the great work that you're doing, amplify it.
Well, thank you, Sandra. And again, happy birthday. I saw all the well wishes. And then after this, would love to see where everyone is tuning in from. Again, as we mentioned, we have a global audience across civil society, government, industry, and academia. You might also be wondering, well, Sandra mentioned a lot of activities. We do a lot of activities because we're trying to learn about this ecosystem while at the same time influencing that. And we do that through multi-stakeholder convening and community building, also multidisciplinary education, our resources like our Responsible Tech Guide, a report on improving social media, report on tech and democracy, AI and human rights, and actually many more. Those are done through collaborative and open working groups that you can join. Pretty soon, we're going to be launching our working group for our upcoming Responsible Tech Guide. But the reason why we do all this, such as the live stream that we're having today, is because we're trying to come together as a community. These wicked, complex tech and society issues behoove us to come together to have a collective understanding and a better approach. How do we socialize best practices? How do we know what's happening? For example, the work that's happening in Australia or Canada or the UK on social media. How do we, sitting here in the United States, like myself, how do we understand that, improve upon it, digest it, right? That's a lot of what we're trying to do here. But I hope this is just a start for everyone here. It's not just about attending an event or a live stream. It's about being embedded inside of the system, finding other people to learn from, sharing your resources, building knowledge upon knowledge, strengthening this responsible tech ecosystem so we can tackle these wicked tech and society issues. We like to say no application without representation, not about us without us. If you're affected by technology, you should have some means to influence its design, development, and deployment. So Sandra, again, happy birthday. I'm going to take you off screen, and then we're going to bring on our moderator, All Tech is Humans, Rebekah Tweed, who you might have seen the news, is moving to New York City. So thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
Hey, how's it going, Rebekah?
Hi, David. Going well. How are you?
In the interest of time, I'm doing well, but I'm gonna pop off screen and let you kind of take it away and then bring on our two special guests for today.
All right, sounds great. Thank you, David. Happy birthday, Sandra, and hello, everyone. Welcome to our live stream on building a career in trust and safety. So I have the privilege of moderating today's conversation. I'm Rebekah Tweed, the program director at All Tech is Human, and I have been focused on responsible tech careers, talent, and hiring trends since 2020. So I'm very thrilled to be hosting the live stream today. This is part of our Responsible Technology University Network monthly live stream series, where we explore different topics of interest to people working on or studying responsible tech within academia. So anyone from students, professors, researchers, you name it. So this is our second live stream, our monthly live stream, and this is the first in our series around responsible tech career pathways. So we're looking more closely at popular subfields under this broad umbrella of responsible technology. So trust and safety is a very popular and crucial space within responsible tech. I've been seeing a lot of really incredible LinkedIn posts from both of today's guests. So it was a no-brainer to invite these two amazing women on today to tackle this topic and to shed some light on what is a very hot career path. So for those who are joining live, please know that we will be taking questions at the end. So go ahead and drop a question in the chat for us. So I'm thrilled that Alice and Pearle both agreed to be with us on today's live stream to share their experience on how to build a career in trust and safety. And after this conversation, please find more insights from them on LinkedIn. They both post regularly. I also want to give a quick plug here at the beginning to make sure you sign up for Pearle's newsletter, Tech Policy Unlocked, and also subscribe to Alice's podcast with Integrity Institute called Trust in Tech. Okay, so without further ado, I will introduce today's guests. We have Alice Hunsberger. Alice is VP of Customer Experience at Grindr, the world's largest social media platform for the LGBTQ+ community. She specializes in creating a human-centered user experience through policy development, cross-functional collaboration, and sensitivity to a diverse and global user base. She heads up the global CX team, which includes policy, customer support, customer experience and user insights, content moderation, and trust and safety. Alice has over 12 years experience leading customer support, customer experience, and trust and safety teams in the dating app industry. Prior to joining Grindr, she led the CX team at OkCupid, where she built the team from the ground up. She got her start in trust and safety 20 years ago when she founded an internet forum, quickly learning that moderation and policy is critical for creating inclusive community spaces. Alice is passionate about ethical tech policy, believing that dating apps, and indeed the whole internet, should be welcoming, equitable, and inclusive for everyone. All right, also joining us today, we have Pearle. Pearle is a Nigerian lawyer with 5 years of experience in tech policy and public affairs. A graduate of University of Lagos and UC Berkeley, she has represented companies like TikTok and Twitter externally and worked with policymakers and private sector partners on issues related to tech-relevant public policy concerns. Pearle managed a team of 20+ members, providing policy leadership and communications within multiple markets, and received 2 company awards for exceptional management. As a passionate speaker, she is committed to demystifying tech policy and various issues in the space, helping young professionals, especially lawyers, find alternate careers in tech, assisting young professionals in securing the bag by networking and showcasing innovations and career opportunities in Africa. In her free time, you can catch her listening to and being motivated by Beyonce. All right, welcome to both of you. So the obvious place to start here would be your own career pathways. So you have both built fantastic careers, and we want to know how you did it. So I'm going to start with Pearle. Would love to know what drew you to trust and safety and to tech policy specifically, and what has your own career trajectory been so far?
All right. Thank you so much. I just want to check if you can hear me okay. Great. Thank you so much, Rebecca. It's really nice to be here amongst two incredible women, like really huge fans of the work that you do, both Alice and Rebecca. To kick off, hi everyone, my name is Pearle, and I have this very fun slogan that I've nicknamed as picked up, which is like the Beyonce of tech policy, because I'm a huge fan of Beyonce. Yeah, so I guess like that gives like a very good intro to who I am. Like I'm obsessed with Beyonce, mainly because of her work ethics and just like in her way of like standing out in the industry. And I figured like that would be somebody that I wanted to emulate in my career. And I guess tech policy just, was like second nature when I studied law at UC Berkeley, and just kind of being around that civil liberties technology space. I just wanted to know more about it. And then I got into projects. I was talking about like AI and Charles rights. I think I just got really intrigued because I was just always like about the human rights aspect. I didn't really think too much of tech and how tech, would intersect. And so when I saw the two, collide, I was like, okay, this is very interesting, like working in tech, but also solving actual human rights issues, online rights issues. And so it just really worked out being in Silicon Valley and just like going to various events, talking to different people, understanding what a tech policy scope is about. And I was like, okay, this is something that it looks like 5 years from now, people will be more interested in it. This was like 2018, 2019, where it wasn't really talked about. So I was really glad that I got into the space pretty early on. Just a quick shout out to my professor, Alexa, at the Human Rights Center at UC Berkeley, who actually got me into this space. So yes, this is how I got started. And I figured, well, I don't have that much years of experience. So what do I need to do to actually get a job in this? And so I did what anybody would do, which just like go online and just like talk about it to anybody who listened. Like I started off with just like 0 followers or something. And then now it's amazing just how much people kind of resonated with what I was talking about, and just how I've been able to like break down very complex issues in the space and try to bring it make it easy and digestible to a lot of people. So I think that's what drew me to a lot of great people like David with All Tech is Human. And, through him, I was able to like land my first job in tech, which was at TikTok as a policy manager. So yeah, that is basically my career trajectory. Like I've worked at TikTok and moved to Twitter, even though that was very short-lived, and now currently at the Oversight Board. So looking forward to talking about it more. But yes, that is what drew me to the space, just my love for human rights and now technology, and just seeing how best to protect users online.
Yeah, that's great. And Alice, I would also love to hear about your background. So recently I saw on LinkedIn, you laid out your path very clearly. You had like a 12-year journey to VP.
20 years, yeah.
Yeah. So I think it would be super helpful if you could share with All Tech is Human that kind of broad overview of the path that you took. So can you talk a bit about how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, my story is the opposite of Pearle. I think I am entirely self-taught when it comes to tech and trust and safety. And I just kind of learned along the way. So 20 years ago, when I was in college, I started an online internet forum. It was for trading vinyl records, super nerdy subculture. But it was a few thousand people. And I discovered when you have an internet forum, you need community guidelines and rules and enforcement, and you need to learn how to like IP ban trolls so they don't come back again. And I got pretty harassed because it was a very male dominated subculture, and I was a woman leading this like important message board for the community. And it was terrible experience. I quit, vowed never to do it ever again. Got a film degree and worked in documentary film as an editor for several years, for 5 years. And then wasn't super happy with it, was looking for something else to do. And somebody that I knew was a founder of OkCupid. dating app. And so in 2010, I started working as a moderator there, just part-time, not superly highly paid. I had the skills because I was self-taught, because I had done this project on my own. And so I knew about as much about moderation as anybody in 2010. Like, this is a while ago. And just kind of grew from there. It was 20 people at the company. And so I just raised my hand and was like, what else do you have? What else can I do? This is really interesting. I love working in tech. I love these problems, and I was just really engaged. And, getting in at a company when there's 20 people, you can grow and your career can grow as the company grows. And so the company went public through an acquisition, became part of Match Group, continued to grow. And then 3 years ago, after a decade at OkCupid, so going from like individual contributor to manager to director of 2 departments, to then I got hired at Grindr as a senior director. Now I'm a VP. And it's all just like putting the years in, putting the time in, growing as companies grow, and like continuing to be curious and take on more work. And the entire time I have not reported to anybody who knows more about what I do than I did, which has been like super scary and probably not the easiest way to build a career. I love what Pearle is doing, that so many people here are probably doing, which is like reach out to other people and get mentors in the space and like learn from people who've done it before. I didn't do that early in my career. I do it more now as a VP than I ever did when I was a manager. And I'm like, my God, I did it the hard way. So my career path was pretty natural progression, I think.
Yeah, that's a really fascinating contrast. So Pearle, I would love to hear from you about some recommendations you might have for people who are trying to land roles currently. I think you have a knack for landing roles, and you always have really savvy and thoughtful advice for job seekers, both on LinkedIn and in your newsletters, especially around things like personal branding and networking techniques and tips like that. So I'm curious if you have any recommendations that you would give to job seekers right now.
Yes, thank you. I guess just like what Alice said, just like on reaching out to people, I think that's the first thing that kind of lit a light bulb in my head when I first started out, and I didn't know where to begin or like who to who to reach out to in terms of a job, because I knew like applying to jobs, for just send my resume wasn't going to go through, because I, from the looks of it, I didn't have any like tech background or safety experience. So I had to switch gears almost immediately when I realized that it wasn't going to work out. So I just want to put it out there, because I know people always think that, oh my gosh, like Pearle is so good at networking and she's just like very savvy. I want to just give a caveat that when I first started out, someone actually blocked me on Twitter because like I was just like spamming them a lot. So it definitely takes time. Like, just saying that is like, it's not something that you wake up and you're just very good at. So like initially I wasn't the best, just put it that way. And I had to learn how to like approach people and be patient, and also to know when to just be like, okay, this person's actually not responding, like I just move on to someone else. So that being said, I would say like your LinkedIn, we're literally doing this on LinkedIn. I feel like LinkedIn is such a powerful tool. It's been amazing. Like, I haven't met either of you, Rebekah or Alice, and we've just in so many ways collaborated and done wonderful things thanks to LinkedIn, just to show you how powerful it is. So I just always encourage young professionals, like there's no hard and fast rule, like, oh, if you do this course, you get this job. Like, I can't give you an A plus B kind of formula, but what I can say is that just by being online and just like putting out your thoughts, like the more authentic you are, the more you tend to stand out. It's hard, it's very cringy. I'm not gonna lie, it's not something that comes naturally to anybody, quite frankly, but it's something that has to be done. That's how you stand out from the crowd, the noise. Because most times people go on LinkedIn to just like showcase their new jobs, showcase an anniversary or promotion. But if you're able to come online and like share valuable content and share your own opinion, or even things that might seem controversial, well, not too controversial, but things that, it's just your own point of view on setting things, especially when it comes to trust and safety, because we don't have it all figured out. I think that's, where that's how you stand out. So that's literally what I did. And from that, I was able to like connect to people. So I was also very intentional about that. I just don't wait for people to come to me. It was very much like seeking out people. How do I search for them? Like a perfect example was when I wanted to work at TikTok, I would just literally search for titles. Like, okay, I want to be a policy manager at TikTok. So I would just search for a policy manager at TikTok. And over 20 names will come up, and I'll just streamline it based on location, based on mutual connections, whatever it was. And I would reach out to them and be like, hey, look, this is my background. I always tell people have like a 5-paragraph pitch ready, 5 lines rather, like, who are you? What are you doing? What is your background experience? Whether it's a job they're looking for, what is that job? Like, don't just reach out to people with a very vague intro. People are like super busy, so you want to be as specific as possible, and then shoot the message. Like, it's usually just good to reach out to 5 people, so that if one person doesn't respond, you have 4 more people. So that's usually what I did. And then eventually just started growing. Like, the more I kept reaching out to people, the more people would respond. We would have informational interviews, we would talk, just have a coffee chat. And some of those people actually helped me with my interview practice. Like, they were so generous with their time, and then I just became more confident with my interviews, with my resumes, and getting referrals. So that's what I would say in terms of like personal branding. Like, it does, the first month is hard, the first message you send is hard, sometimes you might get blocked, but trust me, after that heal, it's beautiful. Then on, like, you just meet so many wonderful people and you get connected to such great opportunities. So yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, that's great. No, and I can definitely vouch for like your authenticity on LinkedIn. I think is what makes you so popular. I think people really resonate with like putting yourself out there like that. Yeah. So Alice, I want to turn to you. I know you've had a lot of experience on the other side of that relationship with job seekers. So I'm curious, as a hiring manager, what are some of the things you look for in a successful candidate?
Great question. It really depends on the role. So obviously, there's specific skills that you need for roles, sometimes more hard and fast than others. But I think generally I look for people who are understanding of what the role actually is and will be. When I talk with people, especially early in their career, there's a lot of folks who are really starry-eyed and excited about getting into tech and the possibilities. And I hear a lot from people about what the job will do for them and how great it will be for them. As a hiring manager, what I want to hear is, what are you going to do for me? Like, we're hiring you to do a job, and that job has to be good for the company. And so what do I need to know about you that will make me trust that you have the skills and you have the knowledge and you have the passion for it, and then you actually understand what it is. So especially in roles with policy and operations and trust and safety, they're emotionally grueling, difficult jobs. Like, it is not easy, and not everybody can do it. You have to be very resilient. And so people who've not done it before sometimes don't know. And so I want to know, like, are you really up for it? Is it really going to work for you? And then, what Pearle said about networking, I think, is really true. I have hired people who just cold applied and didn't get any referral at all. But there's also people who I've hired and people who I know now who I have reached out to me or have been in a webinar and asked really good questions that I've been in. And I just like made a little mental note and been like, that person seems smart and they know what they're talking about. And I have a list of people who, when I'm hiring, I reach out to them and say, I think you should apply for this position because I think you would be good for it. And I've already seen your knowledge and expertise. So hiring managers do pay attention to that stuff for sure. And then, I think the last thing with AI, probably the elephant in the room, is like, how are entry levels entry-level jobs going to change in this industry over the next few years with AI taking on more and more. They're definitely going to change. I think there are going to be a lot less generic entry-level trust and safety roles where you just kind of get taught to do a little bit of everything. The people who are hired are going to have to be people who are super specialists in one particular area, be it a geographical region or a particular policy area or a type of harm, because those are the people who are going to be training the models to do a good job. And so you need humans who are like very, very well versed and specific. That's my prediction. So you can do that as a hobbyist. You don't have to go to school for it. You can read up on everything child safety. There's tons of resources out there, or you can read up on everything about LGBTQ safety or whatever it is that you're personally passionate about. That personal passion and the like expertise in that subject combined, if there's a role that is in that area and you have both of those things, that's your best shot at getting a job. So easier said than done, I think, especially the hiring climate right now, but really lean into what you care about. I think if you do that, then, you know, that's going to serve you well.
That's great. Yeah, that's really valuable advice. So I want to turn to the academic preparation for a career in trust and safety. We actually had some audience questions about this as well. So Pearle, I wanted to ask you, you have a law background. Do you think there are other academic degree programs that you might recommend that would be well suited to prepare someone for a career in this field? And do you find that your colleagues all have law backgrounds, or is there something else that pops up frequently? What do you think?
Yeah. So I would say like it's a yes and no, to be honest. Like there are people who do not have like the typical backgrounds like law. I mean, I think trust and safety, if we're going to say typical, I would say like law, political science, public policy type of degrees, or international law, international human rights. You definitely see people like that. But on average, I've seen people who have like just very various degrees and backgrounds. Like I know in my last role, I had someone who studied the arts, like actual fine arts, and like, you know, was a filmmaker and stuff. So there's no typeset rule. So just kind of like what Alice said, just knowing like an expertise, like let's say you're interested in hate speech or child safety and you run with it and you're just like, you're very knowledgeable about it. You understand how different companies are approaching child safety. That is one way to actually, you know, showcase your expertise. And when you get to the interview, like you're speaking about that. And that kind of draws me to my next point, is like knowing the companies, because I feel like, yes, having a background is great, which can get you to the interview, but interviews in trust and safety are very scenario based. They're not trying to see, you know, how far your law degree got you, what you studied in civil law. They're trying to see how well you can apply their policies into certain scenarios that they see on a day-to-day. So that is something you need to practice for. So like a good example would be like when I was interviewing for a particular company, like just knowing the community guidelines, you know, front, back, and center, like, okay, this is what they would do in their approach. They have like safety blogs. They talked about like what they do on a day-to-day in terms of taking down content around hate speech, content around violence, extremism. So, you know, drawing those examples even to your interview actually will stand out, because they're not going to ask you the legal questions. It's just basically, okay, this is what you guys did in relation to maybe live suicide. This is how you're going to approach another type of scenario if this would occur. So that's something you want to, you know, start practicing from now. So I wouldn't say there's a typeset qualification that you need. It's just that level of expertise and interest. So if you're interested in something, you just need to, I don't know, I guess change, not what's the word? You have to like make your resume look the part to be able to get you to that interview. And this is where referrals come in. This is where networking comes in. And by the time you get into that interview, you're not able to showcase that expertise. So if you're able to like, you know, do the hurdle away from that qualification, that goes a long way. So yeah, that's what I would say. The last thing is just ask really good questions, especially during the interview process, or even doing an informational interview and talking to people who are already working in a company. Learn their processes, learn how to do things internally, and then speak about that during the interviews. Ask really good questions. Like even question why a process is there. Companies appreciate things like that because it shows that when you come in, you're able to like help, improve the processes. You're already seeing it from a different lens, because what I see as a law person might be different from what somebody else sees as engineering, who is interested in coming into policy. So that being said, it's like there really isn't no typeset. It's just somebody who can come with a mission-driven mindset to, improve processes that are already in place.
Yeah, that's
I'll also add a little bit there. I think it really depends on the company. There are definitely some companies that are very interested in hiring people with advanced degrees from fancy universities. And they're, if you want to get a job at those places, you have to have those qualifications. There's a lot of other companies where hiring, the head of the department is like me with like, I don't have a master's, I have a film degree, I am not snobby about degrees. However, with hiring managers, what we want to see is sort of what I said before, some proof or some belief that somebody is going to be able to do the job. And so a degree is like a good way to see that somebody has studied a lot about the subject. Another way is if they've literally done the job before at another company. If you don't have either of those things, you need to demonstrate that some other way, be it what I did, which is like create my own forum and jump headfirst into moderating stuff on my own. You can do that through Discord, or there's lots of places where community moderation is something that you can do yourself. There's also a lot of nonprofits who would love people to put in work and think about the technology and how it's used. And crisis helplines are another thing that if you want to go into a role with operations where you're dealing with customers directly, doing some volunteering at a crisis helpline gives you a sense of what it's like to work with people in crisis situations. And that's another way as a hiring manager that I can kind of see somebody can do it. So degrees and education is definitely one path, but not the only one, for sure. And degrees in these areas didn't exist until incredibly recently. So most people in senior positions at companies are like me, who just kind of self-taught, figured it out. So I think you'll find there's a fair amount of open-mindedness there.
Yeah, that's extremely helpful. So I'm thinking about the fact that at All Tech is Human, especially when we put together things like our mentorship program, we'll have a lot of applications from people who are pivoting and want to pivot into trust and safety specifically. It's a very popular one. And so I'm curious if there are some backgrounds, and this, Alice, this will be for you. Like, are there some backgrounds that you think lend themselves well to a career in trust and safety? And related to that, we had an audience question that was specifically saying, for people who want to pursue a long-term career in trust and safety but are struggling to break into the industry in this current moment, what other jobs do you think could set them up for success later in trust and safety?
That's a good question. Yeah, now is not the easiest time to try to find a job in trust and safety. It's definitely really hard. So I feel for everybody trying to figure it out. I'm trying to think through what backgrounds people have had that are good. I mean, anything with a tech company in general can be helpful. So definitely a lot of people on my team, on trust and safety teams, have done customer support, technical support, dealing with customers at tech companies. And there's so much crossover between support and trust and safety that is really helpful. Anything with an NGO or some kind of advocacy organization dealing with user, human rights issues. People, I say users because it's like they're humans, they're people, they're not users. I'm at All Tech is human, so people working with people and how they interact with technology. Anything that you think will have a lot of nuance and gray area and where you will have to make hard calls. That could be any number of different kinds of jobs, but I think that's like the one skill in trust and safety that if you can give in an interview a lot of good examples of like there was no playbook for this thing. I just had to make a decision, and it was a really tough one, and, you know, could have gone either way. That's something that we're definitely looking for in general. Yeah. There's lots of options out there, I think. So yeah. Good luck to everyone.
So we're going to take a few more audience questions now. So it looks like we have one from Dylan Marie. It says, in the midst of all these changes, layoffs in the trust and safety field, do you think the best pathway to getting a career started in responsible tech has changed? Let's see. Pearle, do you want to take that one?
I don't think so. I think it's fairly the same. I recently got a job with the oversight board. I was laid off from Twitter. So I do empathize with everybody who's like going through the hardships right now. It's definitely very traumatizing. So yes, like it's definitely, there are still companies hiring first and foremost. So, you know, there's still hope out there. The trust and safety space, if at all anything, is kind of growing because there are new laws coming out. So we have like the Digital Safety Act coming up. We have the Online Safety Bill in the UK. There are a lot of like laws coming out. So it's imperative for companies to ramp up and get as much resources as they can to, you know, build out these policies around the new laws. So definitely be in the lookout for that. So people who are in compliance, like let's say you already have some level of interest in compliance or security, whatever it is, I still think like you can definitely make that pivot into trust and safety, for example, because compliance is such a huge thing right now. We're trying to see what laws the GSA or provisions, for example, that the GSA requires of different social media companies. So that's something that even just right now, as you're listening to me, if you take the time to just break down what DSA is and just talk about it on your LinkedIn, I swear so many people will be grateful to you, because a lot of people don't even understand what the DSA is asking for, right? So if you're really good at breaking down really complex issues like DSA, Online Safety Bill, you will definitely be, you know, in the spotlight of companies who might be looking for somebody to help them ramp up. So that's just something to just keep in mind. Another thing to just like mention is also the fact that there are a lot of like recruiters who are looking out for roles, who are trying to fill in, you know, back roles. Like ChatGPT is coming up, and like OpenAI is definitely hiring every now and then. So just be on the lookout for companies like that. Every time you see like a new tool or a new innovation, they need safety, you know, protocols around that. So every time you see that, you can even reach out to companies. I'm like, hey, look, I see that you've created this new product. Do you have a safety team? Do you have XYZ? Can I help you ramp up? Whether it's even from a consulting contract level. So you don't really need to be looking out for like full-time, especially in this, you know, economy. You can come in like as a consultant, because I did that when I was laid off. I had just a lot of consulting roles before I finally got this full-time role. So this is just like, you know, opportunities that you can start looking at. And also the metaverse. I know it's not loud again, but it still exists somewhere. So the metaverse definitely still exists, and there's still a lot of like sensitive safety issues that are out there to discuss and to, you know, work around. So that's another area to also plug in and just see, okay, how best can you bring or help safety issues in that space. So those are 3 things to look out for.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I'd also say our job board, our responsible tech job board, does have a ton of those types of roles. And you mentioned OpenAI is hiring. We scour their job board for different roles to post pretty much every tech company. And we have our program associate, Elisa Fox, has been really expanding the job board, and it's really large and expansive. So check it out if you haven't. All right, next question we have, what are examples of some interview questions? Or is there a resource with practice trust and safety questions? Either of you?
I don't know of a resource that has practice questions, but that's a good idea. I mean, you know, I mentioned before, one of the ones is like, tell me about a time where you had to make a really tough call and there's no easy answer. Those kinds of behavioral questions, that's what Pearle was saying as well, those come up a lot. There's also often questions around like ethics. How do you decide what right means and to whom and why? I always ask questions around what kind of support you need from management, what kind of team player you are, how resilient you might be. Those kinds of things are really important in roles as well. And then, yeah, just sort of generally trying to get a sense. I saw a question in the comment, and I think this is sort of relevant. Not only does somebody have passion and knowledge about the actual subject, but then are they going to be able to propose solutions if they're in a policy role, or make decisions if they're in an operational role that are good for the business and that actually make sense? Because I see, often when I'm chatting with people, especially the question was, are people out of PhD programs seen as not having real world experience? Yes. That is a concern for hiring managers. Yes, I, have that sometimes. And I have read PhD papers before that have all sorts of like really wonderful ideas. And I'm like, there is no way that operationally a business is actually going to be able to put all of these suggestions into practice. Like, sounds lovely, but it's not really going to happen in the real world. And so I often ask a lot of questions, especially people who are coming out of a long, many years of academics without actual industry experience. I try to get like that sense of balance and practicality and pragmatism, and not just what is like the most ideal, wonderful thing. Because, the reality is that in business, there's always a balance that needs to be made, and compromises that need to be made, and tough decisions. And, as much as I would love my departmental budget to be completely unlimited and be able to hire every single person under the sun and do all of the things that I want to do, like, that's just not how tech companies work. So that's, I always probe pretty hard, especially when I'm talking to people that don't have that operational background.
Yeah. So the next question we have from Alan Kinsella says, sounds like critical thinking skills and a track record of stellar problem solving and customer support experience are key. What computer skills are necessary?
Not much. If you know SQL, that's always really helpful. That comes up a lot, I think, for moderation teams. If you can do queries and data yourself, then that's really nice. But that's pretty much it. I think everything else, tools are pretty proprietary for each company. So you're not expected to know any of it. But Pearle, what do you think? You've had more jobs recently than I have, so maybe.
No, I like +1 to it. And I also just wanted to add in terms of like interview questions. So when it comes to like scenario-based questions, like a good example would just be like think of any like okay, for example, Trump. If Trump posts a particular content on Twitter, for example, and it's very dismissive or decisive, like that's kind of questions they would ask you. Okay, so Trump posted XYZ, which is very hateful, targeting certain people of color. What would be your approach? So you need to understand the policies that they've created. So now anybody's first impression would be like, yeah, we need to take down this content because he's targeting people of a particular race, which is, under our hate speech policy, right? But remember that Trump is a public, professional. He's a public person, right? And there are certain companies that do have a lot of classes around what they do when it comes to public posting. If a public official is posting certain things, so these are things that you want to put, mention during your interview. You can just, so this is where differentiates someone who knows their thoughts and like someone who doesn't. So that's something you just want to keep in mind. But yeah, I just wanted to add to that point by Alice.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, it looks like we are about out of time here. So I want to thank both of you so much. This has been an amazing conversation, very insightful, and I've been taking notes from both of you. So everyone can continue the conversation with Alice and Pearle on LinkedIn. Also, please do sign up for Pearle's newsletter and subscribe to Alice's podcast with Integrity Institute. And yeah, thanks everybody for joining us today.
I have one more shout out, which is Pearle was a guest on my podcast. And I think the episode is coming out today at some time. I don't know if it's out yet, but hopefully it'll come out today. So if you want to hear more brilliant words from her, listen, especially if you're interested in getting into tech policy. It's sort of a continuation of some of the conversations that we had today. So if it was interesting, then hear more from Pearle, because she's great.
Excellent. I can't wait.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Alice. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank you
Rebecca.
so
Thanks for
much.
having me.